Hello, vinyl community. It's Matt here again. I decided to make a response video. So I guess doing the rounds is a vinyl tag 2020 quarantine edition. So I believe it was started by Dylan at Noble Records. That's my understanding. So thanks to him for putting these questions together. I think he did it with one or two others, but his was the video that I saw. So I've got a list here that I wrote out, got a whole sheet of paper here. That's my kid's crazy orange colored paper. And I was going to kind of film this live, like go through the questions one by one and start digging through the collection. I'm glad I didn't, because it would have taken like 5 times as long to put the video together. And nobody wants to sit through that. So here's a list of questions. There's 20 questions, and I guess the idea is that because we're all kind of, or most of us anyway, are, we're under stay-at-home orders and wearing masks out in public and only going out for essential travel, that type of thing. It's just sort of a nice little, I don't know, a nice little thing to get to know people better while we're all stuck at home and that sort of thing. So here's the list, and let's go through it. Okay. Question number 1. Favorite record from your home state or city? Well, as those of you who may not know, I'm sure you can tell from the accent, I'm not originally from the US. I have lived here for nearly 20 years, but I'm originally from England, specifically Sussex in England. And so I picked The Cure, who are from Sussex. Yeah, that's the Cure greatest hits right there. Next question. An album you highly recommend. This is a pretty new one that I got. I only discovered them recently, but Black Pumas, or Pumas, however you want to pronounce it. Self-titled album. This was released last year, and they're kind of I'm trying to think what kind of music to describe them as. Sort of a blend of soul and funk, very old school. Anyway, yeah, and they sound very like, I would say they sound very 70s, like they're from the 1970s. If you're not familiar with them, check them out. This is an outstanding album. A few highlights of Black Moon Rising, Colors. My personal favorite song is Fire. Oct 33 for like October 33 is another great one as well. And so this is just a tremendous album. And this one is on cream colored vinyl. There's a few variations available actually. And I think, how did I find them? I think I found them when I was looking on the KEXP through their archives, and they performed, Black Pumas performed KEXP, so that's how I found them. Question number 3, a tip for a beginner. Don't call them vinyls. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe that'll come up in the pet peeve question later, we'll see. No, tip for a beginner. This is going to be controversial, and it does depend on where you live, but don't bother with the thrift stores. Don't bother. A few years ago, it was worth it. Now I think it's a complete waste of time. They're picked clean most of the time when you get there, because there are so many people now looking for vinyl on the cheap. So many people, so many resellers, people who want to buy it for a couple of dollars and resell it for $20. Not to mention the fact that thrift stores have really jacked up their prices in a lot of areas to the point where it's not worth it. Why would you bother? Why would you spend hours going to different thrift stores and then you find one that has some good stuff only to find that they want full retail for it? You might as well have saved yourself a few hours and just gone to a record store or gone to eBay or gone to Amazon or whatever. So, and that's a recommendation that I give with a slightly heavy heart, because I used to love going to the thrift stores, and I'd make an afternoon of it. I would plot out several that I was going to go to. More often than not, I'd find some things. But now, like I said, I think the well is dry. I really do. I think the party's over with the thrift stores and vinyl. Goodwill puts a lot of the stuff on their auction site now. They don't even bother putting it on the shop floor. Anything that comes in that You know, the whoever the manager is that fancies themselves as a record expert, they decide that it's worth a lot of money, so it goes onto the auction site. And like I said, I say it with a heavy heart, but I don't know. That's just what I would say. I don't think it's worth bothering with the thrift stores, which is too bad because it was a lot of fun. But you can get the same thrill on eBay. I kind of do to a certain extent, but I would just support your local record stores. I would do that. Question 4. The first record that really got you into deeper music. Yeah, some of these I had to really think about, and it's sort of hard to remember back decades ago in many cases, but I decided to go for Pink Floyd, Delicate Sound of Thunder. Now, my first experience with this was actually on CD, and my first exposure to Pink Floyd, I mean, I'd probably heard a couple of their songs on the radio when I was a kid, but, Pink Floyd is not really a radio-friendly band. I mean, not only are a lot of their songs very long, but they didn't release many singles during their heyday. They were really very much an album band. There were some singles. Another Brick in the Wall was a #1 in the UK, for example, but to a large degree, though, I mean, they would go years between single releases sometimes. And there's a live album called Nebworth, which I believe was released in 1990. And my mum had a cassette of it, and the last two tracks, I think it was the last two tracks, were Pink Floyd. And one day I just gave it a listen. I was just blown away. I remember they did Comfortably Numb and Run Like Hell. I think it was just those two songs. At least those were the only two that were included on the tape. And I went to a record store. This was in England when I was a teenager, and was looking at the Pink Floyd stuff. And I guess I ended up picking up Delicate Sound of Thunder on CD. I probably gravitated towards it because it was a live album, and what I had heard previously was on that Nebworth live album. And so I think this was one of my very first kind of forays into slightly deeper music that maybe you would be less likely to find in the charts and that sort of thing. All right, next question. An obscure record people may not know about. I've shown this one before, but it's been a long time, so I'll show it again. And that's Watch Out by Wells Fargo. Now, this was a Vinyl Me Please exclusive. For those of you who don't know, Vinyl Me Please is it's like an online record club, basically. And I've been a member a couple of times. I haven't been a member for quite a while now, but this type of record was what made me sign up to begin with. Obscure things like this that maybe would have never been released had Vinyl Me Please not been involved. And I mean, these guys were from Zimbabwe. Here's the back of it. I was just trying to see a date. Oh, 2016. Okay. Now, these songs date from the 70s, but the album was put together just a few years ago. And it's good music. It's good rock music. It really is, especially the title track, Watch Out. It talks about a storm is coming, and this was music that back in the day ran the very real risk of getting these band members arrested back in Zimbabwe. It was very sort of revolutionary talk. But anyway, next question. A band or a group who you collect all of their albums or try to. Obvious answer, I expect, but definitely the Beatles. I just picked out one record to show. It's Love. I've shown this before, but in fact, I think I've done a Beatles collection video before a number of years ago. But yeah, definitely the Beatles for me. To the extent now where I'm picking up I picked up the remixes for Sgt. Pepper, the White Album in Abbey Road, and picked up some Japanese pressings as well. So I'm starting to get a number of their albums where I have more than one copy of. But yeah, definitely the Beatles. Definitely my favorite band of all time. They were the first band I can remember really being into when I was a kid, and I was probably like 5 or something. And my parents had most of the albums. This is in the UK, and I kind of shudder to think now because I trashed those albums, and I bet some of them were first pressings in the UK. And, to have a time machine and go back and take a look at what I'd love to see the serial number that was on the White Album they had, for example. But yeah, that's what got me into the Beatles. Was my parents had the records. Probably my dad. He was the one who was more into music, and but yeah. Okay, next question. Excuse me. I didn't really understand this, but show and tell a whack-a-mole. Then in parentheses it said random. Oh, no, 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 I'm sorry. I missed the question. A band whose second album is better than the first. And I went with Coldplay. Their first album's actually really good, Parachutes, but A Rush of Blood to the Head, I think this was Coldplay at their absolute peak. Their second album, it's been downhill since then, but it was gradual. You know, they still had highlights. I think this was back before they kind of sold out, to be perfectly honest with you. Now they've gone, it's like that's the same thing that Maroon 5 did, you know. They used to be kind of sort of edgy, rockier, and now they're just like any other chart band. They've gone like pop, and I feel like Coldplay kind of went in that direction a little bit too, but that was them at their peak. All right, next question. Show and tell a whack-a-mole. Okay, so just a random pick, I guess. And this is one I picked up recently, haven't shown it. Vangelis Greatest Hits. It's a double album. I think it's a UK pressing. It could be German or something. I don't know. In fact, you know what? Given that the price clearly is like KR, which I thought was maybe Krona, maybe it is like Swedish back in the day, something like that. But it's got, you know, To the Unknown Man and Polestar. Dervish D, I think, is another one. Theme from the TV series Cosmos, and there's the back of it. Double album. Picked that up on eBay. Next question. What album have you listened to the most in your life? There's probably a few contenders. I ended up going with the Beatles, the White Album. It's my favorite Beatles album, so I've listened to it a lot. I remember listening to it as a kid as well. So, it's, you know, at the end of the day, how do you know? Unless there's an obvious standout. Nobody counts how many times they listen to a record, so that just was one that stood out to me. Next question is, show an album with a crazy story. This is one of the most difficult questions, actually. So I ended up going for a stack of albums. So Rob Walker, and if you don't know him, check him out. He has a vinyl community channel. I want to say it was about a year ago. It was a fairly early video of his, and he showed maybe just one album from Public Service Broadcasting, and I was intrigued because he was saying how it was kind of like a wild ride, almost like listening to their music. Like, you were kind of kept on the edge of your seat. You didn't know what was going to happen. It was exciting to listen to. Anyway, I listened to some of their stuff, and I got him to blame for this. I ended up ordering their entire catalog like the next day online. It cost me like $100, but and I think I was half asleep when I did it. It was one of those things where like you're like hovering over the checkout button, like the confirm purchase button, thinking, geez, you know, the wife will kill you if she ever finds out, type of thing. But anyway, so we have here the White Star. Oh, well, this is in reverse order. I'm sorry. Their first album was EP, which was The War Room. And their first full album was Inform, Educate, Entertain, I think. Is that right? Did I get that? Yeah. I think I got that the right way around. Their next album was The Race for Space. And there's actually a remix album of this, which I didn't pick up, but this is the original. The most recent album was Every Valley, right here. And then their most recent EP was White Star Liner, which I also grabbed. So, yeah, got Rob to blame for that. Next question. You're collecting pet peeves. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, the vinyls thing doesn't bother me that much, I guess. I was half kidding about that, but whatever. People can call them what they want. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, the thrift stores jacking up their prices is kind of a pet peeve. Yeah, it's hard to deny. And I would say independent record stores that won't haggle, ones that won't negotiate. Most will, but I've come across a few that won't. And I find that On the one hand, understandable because it's not, you couldn't go into Target or Walmart and try to negotiate the price for it. But at the same time, at independent places, I think customers, maybe customers who are a little more, I don't know, not savvy, customers who know the game or more experienced, whatever, um, they expect to be able to negotiate a little bit, especially if you're buying multiple records. And so that's a little bit of a pet peeve, but yeah, I guess that's about it. Not too much. Next question. An album or genre people would be surprised to know you like. And I picked this one. I don't know if I've ever shown this before. Maybe, but I don't know. Kiss Double Platinum. I like Kiss, actually. I only have this plus Crazy Nights or Crazy Nights, whatever it's called, which was their 87 album, I think that came out. But yeah, I quite like them. I like quite a lot of songs on here. This was a $2 find at a record store, and it's VG plus. I was pleased. Yeah, so I quite like Kiss. Oh, I also have Ace Frehley's solo album too. So, a record from the year you were born. For that, I went back to Pink Floyd. I was born in '79, so I went with The Wall. Great album. I don't think it's their best album, but it does contain two of their favorite songs. My favorite songs of theirs, Comfortably Numb and Mother. Run Like Hell, of course, is another classic. But yeah. Let's see. Next question. This is question 14, so we're about 2/3 of the way through. Show a 10-inch record or share your opinion on them. I don't own any 10-inch records. I think I owned one once. And even that was like, I think it was a Vinyl Me Please thing. It was like free with some other album or something. My opinion, I don't really have one. I'm not interested in them, to be honest with you, but I don't care one way or the other. I guess I think that, well, where would you fit them? Because they wouldn't fit with my 45s, because they'd be too wide in the boxes. And I just think they would get in their way and be fiddly. I don't know. I don't really care about them either way, to be honest. Question 15. Share an interesting fact about an album or song. And I almost didn't bother answering this question, but I did think of one thing. And this actually came up on, is it Facebook or I think maybe Instagram today. And I noticed that somebody had posted some photos of some 45s that they had, and somebody commented and asked what this single was that was sticking out of the top. Anyway, it was Paul McCartney, Once Upon a Long Ago. Now, the person asking the question, I assume, is in the US because they didn't know what it was. And this is a McCartney song that was never released in the US. It's not particularly rare or anything. It's just that I found a lot of people in North America in general, because I don't think it was released in Canada either, and a lot of people in North America just have never even heard it. Came out in '87. The only album that I know for sure this is on is his All the Best compilation album, which is also from '87, but only the UK version. The US version has a slightly different track listing, and it omits Once Upon a Long Ago. I think this is a really good song. It's not one of my absolute favorites of his, but it might make my top 10. I really like it. I love the opening chords. The guitar solo is terrific, especially on the full album version. This is the single version, of course, so it's shortened. It's actually kind of a rough edit, to be honest, where that's concerned. But yeah, Paul McCartney, Once Upon a Long Ago. It's kind of a little interesting tidbit. Question 16. Show an album with an animal on the cover. I kind of cheated a little bit, but Jive Bunny. There you go. There's a rabbit for you. Okay. Question 17. Show an album with crazy artwork. I think I've shown this before, but I think this is freaky. Life's Harder Than You Die by It's Immaterial. I think that's such a weird album cover. Yeah, it's kind of freaky. I don't know what's on the guy's face. I don't know what it's supposed to be. It's just not something you want to run into down a dark alley. All right, guys, we're almost there. 3 questions to go. Show a really good album that you can find for cheap. Well, I went with Frampton Comes Alive. This is one of the best live albums of all time. Seriously, it's terrific. And It's very common in record stores. It's common in thrift stores. Maybe even still today common in thrift stores. I don't know. Who knows with the way that thrifting has gone with the vinyl, but you should be able to pick this up for, I don't know, even in a record store, I wouldn't expect to pay more than $5 to $10 for it. 10 would be pushing it actually. So if you can find one without any ringwear, you're doing very well. Mine has a lot of it, which you can see here. Almost every copy of this that I've ever seen has ringwear for some reason. All right, second to last question. Show an album with an acquired taste. I went with Gil Scott-Heron, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, because a lot of this is almost more like spoken poetry. And it's very eclectic. More than once I have thought about just getting rid of this, trading it in, whatever, selling it. It's kind of not my thing, but I don't know. I still have it for now. And then finally, speaking of kind of not my thing, show your most recent find. This was an impulse buy. I mentioned in a couple of my recent videos that some record stores online are doing kind of either auctions or like on social media, they'll put a record up and it's kind of first come, first serve. Whoever comments first gets to buy the record, that type of thing. And they put this up. I thought the cover looked interesting, so I quickly said, yeah, I'll buy it. It wasn't that expensive, but still. It's a Soma self-titled album, I guess it is. I guess it's kind of sort of prog rock, kind of from the mid-'80s. It's from 86, I think. I think it's from 86. And I just liked it. And I was like, you know what, it's like $10 or something. I'll just take a punt on it. It is a gatefold, so it's got that going for it. I haven't cleaned it yet, so I haven't listened to it. But I did listen to a little bit online. It was okay. We'll have to see. There's the inside of it. Nothing too much to write home about. I'll show you the... But it is on white vinyl, which is kind of nice. Right there. I don't think that makes it particularly rare or anything, because I think that it was only pressed on white vinyl. It's not like, you know, they pressed 90% of them on black vinyl and 10% on white. Now, I think white was the only option. But, yeah, so we're going to give that a listen at some point once I've cleaned it. And if I keep it, I sort of doubt it in the long run, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. That's it. That's all the questions. So thanks again, Dylan, for putting this little, I don't know, it's not really a contest, this little thing together for the quarantine Vinyl Tag 2020. I really appreciate it. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to cut this off now. We're running at, what, 22 minutes, so almost 23 minutes, so it's starting to get a bit long. Hope everybody's doing well, staying safe. I know my hair needs cutting. Jeez, look at that. Out of desperation, I've ordered like a hair cutting kit from Amazon. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. It could be, I might be wearing a hat next video. Let's put it that way. We'll see. All right, guys. Thanks as always for watching. And until next time. Bye-bye.